In 2022, Queen Elizabeth II made history by becoming the first British monarch to reign for 70 years. Though millions of words have been written about the world's longest reigning living monarch, few people knew the woman behind the crown, or even what her daily duties entailed. Here are some things you might not know about this royal legend, who died on September 8, 2022, at 96 years old. For the first 10 years of her life, Princess Elizabeth was a relatively minor royal. Her status was akin to Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie of York today, but that all changed with the death of her grandfather, King George V, in 1936. The next in the line of royal succession was Elizabeth's uncle, Edward VIII, who abdicated the throne less than a year after taking it so that he could marry an American socialite named Wallis Simpson. Edward did not have any children at the time, so his brother Albert, Elizabeth's father, ascended to the throne, taking the name George VI and making the then 10-year-old Elizabeth the first in line to become queen. Instead, Elizabeth was tutored at home during sessions by different teachers like Henry Martin, Vice Provost of Eton College, which is still for boys only, and was also given private religion lessons by the Archbishop of Canterbury. During one of the broadcasts, the 14-year-old princess reassured listeners, "I can truthfully say to you all that we children at home are full of cheerfulness and courage." Despite the risks, Elizabeth eventually joined the Women's Auxiliary Territorial Service and trained as a truck driver and mechanic in 1945, when she was 18 years old. Queen Elizabeth II was the only female royal family member to have entered the armed forces, and until her death, was the only living head of state who officially served in World War II. When then Prime Minister Winston Churchill announced that the war in Europe was over on May 8, 1945, people poured out into the streets of London to celebrate, including Princesses Elizabeth and Margaret. Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and Queen Elizabeth were third cousins, both shared the same great-great-grandparents, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. Philip, son of Prince Andrew of Greece and Denmark and Princess Alice of Battenberg, first met Elizabeth when she was only 8 years old and he was 14. Both attended the wedding of Princess Marina of Greece, Prince Philip's cousin, and Prince George, the Duke of Kent, Elizabeth's uncle. 5 years later, the pair met again when George VI brought Elizabeth to a Royal Naval College in Dartmouth, where Philip was a cadet. In a personal note, Elizabeth recalled falling for the young soldier in the making. "I was 13 years of age and he was 18 and a cadet just due to leave. He joined the Navy at the outbreak of war, and I only saw him very occasionally when he was on leave, I suppose about twice in 3 years, she wrote. In 1946, Philip proposed to Elizabeth when the former planned a month-long visit to Balmoral, her royal estate in Scotland. But when George VI finally caught wind of the pending nuptials, he would only officially approve if they waited to announce the engagement until after her 21st birthday. The official public announcement of the engagement finally came nearly a year later on July 9, 1947. Technically, the Queen's last name was Windsor, which was first chosen by George V in 1917 after the royal family wanted to distance themselves from Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, the dynasty to which they belonged, for sounding too Germanic during World War I. But as a way to distinguish themselves from the rest of the royal family, in 1960 Elizabeth and Philip adopted the official surname Windsor Mountbatten. Like most British monarchs, Elizabeth got to celebrate her birthday twice, and the reason why boils down to seasonably appropriate pomp and circumstance. So instead, her official state-recognized birthday occurred on a Saturday in late May, or more typically June, so that the celebration could be held during warmer months. Elizabeth officially ascended to the throne at just 25 years of age when her father, George VI, died on February 6, 1952. Elizabeth was in Kenya at the time of his death and returned home as her country's queen. Still reeling from an atmosphere of post-war austerity, Elizabeth used ration coupons and a 200 coupon supplement from the government to pay for her wedding dress. Elizabeth II was the world's most well-traveled head of state, visiting more than 115 countries between hundreds of official state visits, but she did not even own a passport. Since all British passports are officially issued in the Queen's name, she technically did not need one. Sir Sherard Cooper-Coles, former British ambassador to Saudi Arabia, recounted to the Sunday Times the time when Elizabeth drove former Saudi Crown Prince Abdullah around the grounds of Balmoral. To his surprise, the Queen climbed into the driving seat, turned the ignition and drove off, he said. A 17-year-old named Marcus Sargent, who was obsessed with the assassinations of figures like John Lennon and John F. A year after the Trooping the Colour incident, Elizabeth had another run-in. Whales and sturgeons taken in the sea or elsewhere within the realm, meaning most aquatic creatures are technically labelled fishes royal, and are claimed on behalf of the Crown. Once the 18th century rolled around and washing people's dirty feet was not seen as befitting of the royal, the act was replaced with money allowances bequeathed by the monarch. Before Queen Elizabeth II's doctors advised her to quit drinking, she was said to enjoy gin mixed with Dubonnet, a fortified wine, and a slice of lemon on the rocks every day before lunch.